Good morning. Today we are doing the adventure that you guys have sent us on. We are in the Mounth, the winner of our little poll that we did on our community page to decide where we should go next. We are sitting doing this filming and all we hear is a dog crunching something. De Niro, what are you eating? He's found something. I can imagine, I'll put money on the fact that it'll be dried up sheep poo. Snacktastic. Now the Mounth is somewhere that is not actually very well defined. There is no, it definitely starts here and it definitely ends there. So we thought we would just head north to somewhere that was recommended as being like the edge of the Mounth. So we started off heading up through the town of Blairgowrie, which as you can see is very nice, and we'll be coming back here to do a full episode in the future. But once you got through Blairgowrie, you're into some truly stunning scenery. This is a main road that heads north towards the Glen Shee ski resort, and Glen Shee is pretty much, as far as we can find out, the western edge of the Mounth. So we're going to head to Glen Shee and we're going to start our wee adventure from there.
We're at Glen Shee Mountain Resort. I don't think either of us have ever been here before. Neither of us are big into skiing, but this is where you would come if you wanted to go skiing.
And obviously we are not here for the skiing, but Bex has noticed the cafe, so we're going to go for a wee cup of coffee. And there is the, what do you call it? I just called that a, what do you call it? There's the chairlift that goes up to the top of the hill, but I don't think we'll be doing that today. We will have to think about that one. Yeah, the decision about going up in the chairlift has been made for us because it's £12 return. No thanks. Told you we were tight. I turn round to turn the microphone round and Bex has gone. She is on the scent of coffee, I think. There she is. I appreciate it's out of season, but Bex, how would you describe that?
I would describe that as underwhelming in the extreme. We decided not to have coffee there. We're going to find a nice little cafe somewhere.
As Glen Shee is the western edge of the Mounth, the only way to go was east. So we followed the River Dee through some really beautiful scenery to go to one of the places that is actually mentioned on our book in chapter 33, the book that you sent us on the adventure from, remember? So the next stopping point that is given to us by our old book is Esley the Greater, which is a recumbent stone circle with a cairn, and this is Neolithic or Bronze Age, they reckon, and it's very impressive, but unfortunately we can't get anywhere near it. There is an access track of sorts, but it is covered in nettles, but thankfully we've got our little electric budgie, so the drone went over and got these pictures for us. This stone circle has a burial cairn in the middle, and bones were found when that was excavated in the 1800s. It's part of a sacred landscape that would have been very important to the people that lived here, and it's all overlooked by a hill that's got a thing on top of it that looks a little bit like a pluke. And if you don't know what a pluke is, well, that must be time for our word of the day. It's a feature that is visible from pretty much all of the Mounth, and we spent the rest of the trip calling that thing Pluke Hill. We are now at Culsh Earthhouse, and I know Bex has been underwhelmed by some of the things that we've seen before, but I don't think she's ever been quite so underwhelmed as she is by this. It's a tunnel that goes under there. Shall we go for a wee look? It's probably a bit muddy and a bit low, but we'll see what we can do. Oh, big brave Beck. This is dark and mysterious as we like it. It's also, I've got sunglasses on so I can't actually see where I'm going. Oh wow, it's quite a big long tunnel compared to what you might think. This is really smart. These were built as storerooms, they think. There would have been a house up above and then this underneath. And they're called earthhouses or souterrains, which is from the French, I guess, for subterranean. What do you think? Do you like it?
I do.
Quite cool, isn't it? It's underwhelming from the surface when all you can see is nothing. There's no sign of it. But when you get down here, it's actually quite cool. Actually, Bex has just pointed out something really clever. This probably wasn't dug as a tunnel. It looks like it was probably dug as a trench and then massive sandstone slabs as a roof and then the house up on top of that. That's well spotted, young lady. That makes perfect sense. Easier to dig a trench than it is to dig a tunnel. So there you are. That is the tunnel under where the earth house would have been. That is really smart. Look at the size of those slabs. we can now go and we can tick this off in the Historic Scotland app. If you put the app on your phone, you can then tick off places that you've been and you get virtual medals. So you can be virtually happy to have really visited a place that you've then got a virtual memory up. You know what I mean. Anyway, yeah, you can collect little medals. Woohoo. It is quite easy to miss because there's Mabel, there's the sign, and then you can't actually see it till you get down and then you see that little arrow down there. So I must admit I thought this would be some sort of tomb thing, but according to the sign here that I'm not going to read to you, it's not. These were all purely residential, so people would keep their supplies of grain in the dark and the cool for the winter months. It's really nice, and you've got no idea that it's there apart from the map and the sign.
I'm sure this is a weed, but it's actually really, really pretty.
And technically, what would be the name for those?
Orange flowers.
Orange. Those are orange ones. There you go. Okay, the next stop on our little adventure is Banchory, which is a really pretty town. We've never been here before, definitely. We're going to go for an explore and show you guys what we can find. But first we're going to go and get some food because we are been exploring and a bit hungry.
Yep.
Our quest for food has brought us down this little alleyway, which is back there, because there's a thing down here called the pancake place that looks quite nice. Let's see what there is to see. There's the pancake place, and then there's some houses, and yeah, you don't really want pancakes, but what a nice wee square. I wonder who Scott Skinner was. This is Scott Skinner's Square, which, as you'll see, is round. Oh, that solves that mystery. James Scott Skinner was the Strathspey King. Still never heard of him. He was a fiddle player. This is quite nice, isn't it? There you are. There's all your words of the day in one place. Whether you have had a fine sandwich or a hot bowl of soup, let other people know. And there's the menu. I'll be having the full Scottish breakfast, and I'll have a guess. Bex is going to make an immediate decision and have the avocado on toast because she likes things that are a bit weird. So Bex, what are you going to have?
Avocado on toast, of course.
Yarn bomb. We do like this, as you know. They're really well done, very clever, and that one's quite good. Banchory is another place with some really pretty buildings, like this church, which we are quite fond of. It's nice to see some gargoyles. There's not nearly enough gargoyles in the modern world, but those ones up there are looking down on the main street of the town. So Bex is going into a little shop, and I'm going down here to look at what might be, well, what actually is the War Memorial. So this is the town's War Memorial, and this has got a feature that I've never seen before. This has got men who I'm guessing were either father and son or brothers, but they've got a little bracket. So the Gilmores there, John and William, and up there there's the Dunbars, George and Normand. These are families who lost more than one person in the First World War. That must have been pretty harrowing, especially for a small and tight-knit community like Banchory. And on the other side there's got to be a story, because there's Ivan Sprott and James Sprott, and there's Alexander Sutherland and William Sutherland, all with their little thing on this end. But next one down, Adam Thompson and John Thompson, looks like that's been added later, like maybe they didn't know they were brothers at the time, or the mason that carved it got it wrong, but that one is the only one that's like that. Yep, War Memorial in front of what is now a funeral director's. Ironically, it must have been something else at some point, because it's a nice wee building with a bell on it. If you ever want to kidnap Bex, all you've got to do is put a sign that says British Red Cross Shop, pointing down a really not very charity shop looking alleyway. So, oh, charity shop, let's go down here. I bet she gets mugged. It's quite exciting. If somebody just put that sign there for a joke and they're actually harvesting body parts at the bottom of this hill. So just when she thinks that she's been denied a charity shop, there it is there. Banchory was the place we'd picked for our overnight camp, so we found a nice parking spot using the Park for Night app that was right next to a big and very empty field, so this happened. It is funny when he's running about and then gets a sniff of something, because he does an emergency stop and then goes try and find out what it was that got his attention. As you probably noticed from that little bit of footage of De Niro running about, the weather has gone a bit Scottish. So we put on our finest waterproofs and headed into this, the Burnet Arms, which was very highly recommended on Google as a place to go and get some food. And Google, once again, did not let us down. Our meals were excellent. On our way back to Maple, we came across this. This is the Painted Stones project. It's lots and lots of stones that people decorated during the COVID lockdown, and instead of them just getting sort of thrown away, they've all been set in concrete as a permanent memorial and a permanent reminder of COVID and the lockdown and how this little community pulled together. That must have been one of the good things about going through this in a wee community. Everybody looked after everybody else. Some of the stones are quite impressive, some of them are quite funny, and some of them are just a bit odd, but we did see one with a greyhound, so we were quite happy. But the stones were not the strangest thing that we saw in this wee park. No, we think that we actually stopped a crime. We think we saw a squirrel that's about to clearly mug an owl. It's about to punch the owl on the back of the head, which is why the owl looks terrified. Nasty, nasty squirrel, go away. Well, we are still in the area loosely described as the Mounth, where actually this is called Tarlin, the bit we're in just now, and it is very nice and lots of history. We just saw the earth house, and now we're going to go and look at a stone circle. Yeah, another one, sorry. Not a bad view from up here. We're heading up this path to the stone circle, which is up the top. De Niro and Bex are off ahead somewhere because they're very keen. Right, we've made it to the top of the hill, and there's what we came to see, the stone circle. This would have been a tremendously important sacred place to the farmers here thousands of years ago, and it's still a nice place to visit, isn't it? It's got not a bad view out that way, or out that way, or out that way, or out yeah, it's got not a bad view all the way round. We'll show you that a bit later on with the drone. Now, I've got a theory that this is a recumbent stone circle, and what they've got is two stones that are pointing up and down the way with a flat one in the middle. And I think the guys that built this had the same sort of set of instructions and the same user manual that they had when they built Stonehenge, except in Stonehenge they said flat stone in the middle, that must be on the top, and here they thought flat stone in the middle, nah, the top looks like far too much work, we'll just put it down the bottom. Yeah, lie it on the ground, no one will notice. We were at a charity shop yesterday and we saw something that we thought, oh, that's probably not a great idea. We've got De Niro an extending lead for when we're out like this and we don't know where we're going, and he absolutely loves it because he can walk off a few metres but can't go too far. Now obviously the problem with an extending lead in a greyhound is if the greyhound launches himself really quickly, he'll get to full speed and then he'll break his neck. Fortunately, De Niro is not a huge fan of launching himself dead quickly. In fact, he's not a huge fan of launching himself anywhere apart from into his bed. As well as the ancient history up there. This is more recent history. This is a Royal Observer Corps nuclear bunker. And there'd be men and women underground here who would report back if there's a nuclear explosion anywhere near here. And these are dotted about all over the country, and they were how Whitehall and the powers that be would know the situation through the country, what had been destroyed and what hadn't in case of a nuclear attack. They're mostly in a pretty bad way. Some have been maintained and repaired and restored. This one's locked, but there's a ladder that goes down there to one room where there's a toilet and a little kitchen and a desk and some technology and a telephone, so they could phone in and say, we are at post number blah blah blah, and don't try to get to Aberdeen because it is a smoking hole in the ground. A smoking hole in the ground is a step up from bits of Aberdeen today.
Summertime, why is there nobody here? I mean, it's great that there's nobody here because it's only us.
So that was Tom Naverry Stone Circle, one of the places in the area of the Mounth that you guys voted that we should come and see. So thank you very much to everyone that voted. You sent us some place we would not otherwise probably have gone. And as you can see over there, De Niro and Bex are working flat out on this episode. Hello! Oh dear. Bex was having a wee dance in the stone circle, saying, if I have a dance in the stone circle, maybe good things will happen. Well, I think her dancing has displeased the gods because it was blue skies and sunshine, and now it's gone a bit like that. But it was, to be fair, a very nice dance though. And if the old wife's tale about the cows lie down when it's going to rain is true, then those cows know something that we do not. But then it is Scotland and cows do lie down quite a lot, and it does rain quite a lot. So it could just be coincidence, or the cows could be expert meteorologists saying, yep, it is going to rain. Apart from that one that's going for a wee walk, he doesn't think it's going to rain. It's quite nice to see how close De Niro and Bex have come since I got him, because when I first got De Niro, I don't think Bex was at all sure, and I thought we might have had a it's me or the dog situation, and if it actually got to that point, well, we would have probably missed her. But then he is awkward and lanky with dubious social skills and no manners, as you can see.
I can't think who he reminds me of then.
Okay, we are now in Fettercairn, and just to prove it, there is a picture of a market cross with a blue thing and a blue door, and over there is the actual market cross. So we are there, and as you can see, the only thing that's changed since 1980 something is that's painted red. And that door's painted red, but that is Fettercairn's Market Cross. So there you are, just to prove we are where we say we are, and it's not all done with CGI. And because this is a Market Cross, it is marked with a unit of measurement. It's marked with the Scottish L. And if you want to know what the L that is, then that is time for a wee bit of history. The Scots L was a measurement unit which was approximately 37 inches or 0.94 metres, and the reason it was marked on the Market Cross was it was a reference. You could go and you could check that your L was the same as the official L. So if you were buying, for example, fabric, you could make sure you got the right amount and you got what you were paying for. And I know what all you guys were thinking. You were thinking, why has there not been a graveyard yet in this episode? Well, here we are. We are in Fettercairn, and we're going to go for a wee look at the church and the graveyard. Lots of quite old stones propped up against the wall of the church. Now, I think those were the tops of table tombstones. So I think there's no table tombstones in the graveyard at the moment, but I think that's what they probably were. Let's see if we can see anything on them, like iconography-wise. Skull, crossbones, some sort of Masonic type thing, set square type symbol, no idea.
So this gravestone's quite interesting. It's a family that were around in the 1800s, but some of the family members lived to quite a ripe old age. There's somebody there age 90, age 84, age 83.
Yeah, they must have been quite well to do. They would not have been working hard on the farms. They would have been quite a well-to-do family.
They must have been, yeah.
Cool. Very well spotted. And once again, proving what we said about the buildings in these places, the church is usually the prettiest building in the whole village. Amongst the gravestones, for me, this one stood out. Now, we know there was a great fashion in Britain for Egyptology in the mid-1800s, and this gravestone is like an Egyptian temple. It's got that sort of cornice at the top, and what I guess are what they thought papyrus would look like, and a very impressive capital on the two sides. That is really nice. That's almost like the sun god, but not quite. I think that is really smart. If you're into Egyptology, that will probably ring a few bells stylistically. This one is quite impressive. It's another one that's got the winged baby's head, the soul at the top, and the writing says, "Here lies Robert Harvey, late tenant in Dentraith, who died May 4th, 1767, aged 63 years. I don't know if he was maybe a military gentleman with the this here, or if that's part of his family shield. No idea, but quite an impressive gravestone. And a graveyard is full, to be fair, of quite impressive gravestones. And it's not a bad looking wee church over there either, although the clock is at the wrong time. I'll have to get that fixed. And a little memorial to a guardsman from the Scots Guards who died in the First World War. If you look around these graveyards, these are just dotted about all over. These guys were, I would guess, wounded in action or wounded in France and Belgium and then brought back and died when they got home. Because it was unusual for bodies to be repatriated. The British decided all the bodies were going to get left pretty much where they fell, which is why Belgium and France are full of Commonwealth war graves, full of British soldiers.
It looks like somebody has knitted a poppy that was placed on this grave and it's fallen over in the wind, so I'm just going to reinstate it beside this gravestone.
It's really good how these men are all remembered. I mean, here his family probably still live on, his family are probably still in the area, but you know, a lot of places these guys are just names on headstones remembered by no one, but looked after by the Commonwealth War Grave Commission. Oh, not quite sure what that wee building there is, but check out the windows. It's hundreds of little panes of glass. That's obviously quite old. If you're going to drive about swearing at people, don't do it in a van that's got your company's name written all over the side of it, Mr. Specsavers.
Another thing that it mentions in the book was the arch. We weren't sure if we were able to find it, but if you just turn yourself around.
Yeah, I'm guessing that is the arch there. That was to commemorate a visit by Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. So there you are, there is the Memorial Arch, which is in actually not a great state of repair. There's plants grow out of it and various letters have fallen off. So it says Tato something Torth and something, no idea. But from over here we've managed to see what it actually says, because we thought it was something, but there's actually a V at the start just there, so it's V-I-C-T-O-R-I, and that's an A, not an H. So it's Victoria and obviously Albert.
That looks like it could have been a nice place in its day, maybe a nice hotel or a restaurant or something.
Couldn't it? These places all had really nice hotels. I suppose when the royals were coming, all the hangers on and all the tourists would stay in the nice hotels. Very pretty. And round the back there's something that would make an impressive house, we think. It's a house with a garage, but unfortunately it would need a new roof, and I'm guessing that would not be cheap. What a pretty wee place, isn't it?
It's lovely, yeah.
So another little, what was once a fountain, and the public hall. This place has got so many nice buildings and so many interesting wee bits to look at. What we're going to do now is there's actually a castle here. I know you're probably about castled out, but we're going to go and find it anyway. And I've got the camera, so you've got no choice. You're coming with us. We are at Killdrummy Castle now, which is a 13th century castle that was ruined, but it was quite heavily restored by a guy in the early 1900s who was fascinated by its history, apparently. I read that in the visitor centre. So we're going to go and have a wee look at the castle. So there you are, that is Killdrummy Castle, which is historic Scotland.
And another place that's free with your membership.
Yep, so if you're a member of Historic Scotland, either with the Explorer Pass or the annual pass, you get into these places for free. So for Bex and I, that's another £15 saved, £7.50 each to get in here. There's a really good romantic story here that dates back to the Countess of Mar and the nephew of the king. And they were getting married, but the Countess, because she was a countess and he was just a noble, she signed over all of her possessions and the earldom of Mar to this nephew of the king. And the day they got married, they stood in front of this castle and he gave her back the keys. So he gave her back everything that she'd given him. So this is the castle that I've just forgotten the name of, Killdrummy Castle. It's quite intact, but as I said before, a lot of it was restored in the early 1900s, which is a fate that befell a lot of these castles. Because if you look over there, there's sort of high quality big lumps of sandstone up to just above that line, and then it's all just rubble and concrete. So I'm guessing that was all done more recently. It's just been piled up by people who did not have the skills of the original stonemasons that built this place. Yeah, you see the same thing I was just talking about there, and that wall above Bex, that's all different to the bit at the top. The bit at the top has been bolted on to add some height, I guess, restore it to its original skyline. And that is the old tower of the castle, I'm guessing. But what I am interested in is what is over here, because I don't know for sure, but that looks to me like it's a tower house. The walls of these castles traditionally were round for extra strength, but that I think is a later addition. Now I don't know, I could be making it up. You've been with us on our adventures and you've seen Scots Tarvet Tower and Killarney Castle that are 16th century tower houses, and they do look awfully like that. Interesting. I'll have to find out if that is actually a tower house in a later edition or if I'm just talking complete nonsense. This is the remains of what was once the most technologically advanced building in Scotland. This was the Snow Tower where the Earl and Countess of Mar lived. Must have been an amazing building to see, and apparently it fell down in the 1800s, which is, yeah. And again, you can see old stonework and then this sort of rubbly thing built up on top of it. But if you want to know what it looked like when it was intact and when it was new, there's a picture of it there for you. That's a sign that I am not going to read to you because you can read it for yourself. But that is the stonework of the tower at the bottom there. And there's a well down there and a series of holes so they can get water to the top. That's really smart and quite clever. Yeah, permission to look slightly smug. This is a 16th century tower house, and I'll have to show you those bits in order so you can see that I didn't just make it up. This is not just clever editing. This is the remains of a later edition tower house, which is still quite a lot of it there and still quite impressive. That's the corner where the spiral staircase would have been going all the way up to the top. A guy called Alexander Elphinstone had this built and lived here with his wife in the 1500s, the early 1500s. And it turned out this castle, not this bit, but the whole castle, was given to this family by the king. And 100 years later, they figured out the king did not have the right to give them the grounds, and so it was given back to the Earls of Mar. So the guy who'd lived in the castle and built this had it taken off him. That must have hurt. This is quite cool. This is the Great Hall. You can see all the benches in the windows, and you can see it's a big space for a big party. In 1306, Osborne the blacksmith, when this place was under siege, set fire to grain that was being stored here, and it's forced Robert the Bruce's brother, Sir Neil Bruce, to surrender to the English. And if you're wondering how I know that, I'm reading it off that sign. Bex tells me I've got to stop reading things off signs because you'll be getting used to it, but I still think it's quite funny, so I'm going to keep doing it because I think it's funny. This is quite an impressive castle. It's quite a lot of it left, but it's just so atmospheric. Although the restoration appears to have gone a bit over the top, if you look at all the bits that appear to have been rebuilt, it's still in quite good nick and quite a good idea to get your imagination going and think what might have been here. Sir Neil Bruce dancing here, and then the siege of the English army outside, and all the excitement that must have been round about that time. It must have been a great time to live in Scotland, unless you were a peasant, in which case it was probably a very short life. This is the Warden's Tower, and down there we see a scary prisoner. Arr! The warden's accommodation and the guards' accommodation was up the top, and the prisoners obviously were kept down the bottom. Here, unlike in some other prisons, they actually appear to have some sort of sanitation. They had a latrine of their very own that they could, you can imagine what you did down there. But at least they had it, they weren't having to do it on each other's feet. So on this level you have prisoners with their toilet. Next level you have guards, and at the very top you have the man in charge, the warden, who was responsible for the security and the safety of the castle. So he would have lived up there in fine quarters, well above the smells coming from down here. If you go up that flight of stairs today, you're going to look down on Bex. Hi Bex! This wee journey ends with a visit to Brown and White Catathon. Well, I say a visit, what we actually did was send the drone up because it was quite a long walk, it was quite hot, and De Niro was not looking like he wanted to go for another long walk. The White Catathon is definitely the most impressive of the two. At one point these walls would have stood several metres high. Talk about dominating the landscape. It's like a broch but on a massive scale. The Brown Catathon, on the other hand, is just a big lot of earthworks. There's banks and ditches and all sorts of stuff, so it's never had a big stone structure on top like the White Catathon did, but it's still a very, very impressive looking site. Why were these places built? What were they used for? Well, nobody actually knows. There's a lot of very well educated guesses, but as for facts, they are a bit thin on the ground. And with that Iron Age history, that's us finished with volume 33 of the journey that you sent us on. We don't know where this area starts, we don't know where this area ends, and we still don't really know how to pronounce it, but that's it. You have seen round the Mounth or the Mounth or however you pronounce it, no idea. But thank you very much for watching. Thank everybody who voted very much for sending us on this adventure, and we'll see you soon for more Scotland on a shoestring.
Thank you to everyone that supports us on Patreon and buys De Niro a biscuit on Ko-fi. It's very much appreciated, and the links are at the end of our video if you want to support us.
So thank you guys very much, and we'll see you soon.
Bye!
And hello to anyone who's still watching. The episode's finished, you shouldn't be watching this anymore. But as we have a lot of extra drone footage that we haven't used anywhere else, I thought I would do you a wee compilation of beautiful Scottish scenery, so I do hope you enjoy this.